This broadcast is the property of Codependence Anonymous. Reproduction without written permission from Codependence Anonymous is not permitted.
Welcome, everyone, to the Saturday afternoon, October meeting of the Fellowship Forum. Codependence Anonymous and Fellowship Forum occurs on the last Saturday of every month, unless posted otherwise. We take up topics of interest to the members of this fellowship. It is an opportunity to ask questions and share not just on your own personal experience, strengths, and hope, but also the program itself. These recordings, the recording of this forum is posted at various CoDA places, websites, and links to those will be put in the chat shortly. Again, my name is David. I'm codependent. I'm the co-host of the Fellowship Forum, along with James Kay. And today's meeting is going to be about the version of the Recovery Patterns of Codependence that was submitted at this year's CoDA Service Conference in July in Houston. And it is the I version. And one of the questions raised, or one of the issues raised at the conference, was people wanted to be able to compare or see side by side the current version of Recovery Patterns of Codependence along with these new versions that had been submitted by the Literature Committee. And the motion was passed, not by 2/3, but by a majority. And so ultimately, the board will make decisions about how to distribute these new versions of the Recovery Patterns of Codependence. Today's meeting gives us an opportunity to at least address one of those issues. We have a chart that shows the two documents side by side. It actually shows the three documents, but it is such a large chart, 4 pages to this document, that to start with, I'm just going to be showing the current version and the I version of the Recovery Patterns of Codependence. James, is there someone here from the Literature Committee that would like to share their experience, strengths, and hope on these documents with us today?
David, that was the first thing I was going to ask.
All right.
Do we have anyone from the CoDA Literature Committee here today?
Raise your hand, and I will unmute you and make you a co-host. I'm not sure that we do. So the ball's in our court, James. And do you have any introductory material you would like to share before we get right down to displaying these documents and taking questions and comments from the people in the forum?
Number one, I thought we were going to have people here. And number two, Bill, I think it was Bill from Texas. He was going to be here. He didn't show up yet.
Right.
Him and the folks from Texas, they came up with this idea of using I statements on both sides instead of I and we. And when he presented it, and I believe it was 2019, of course, being codependent, we all said no, and it didn't really fly really well. So it kind of got put on the back burner and then came up again at the 2023 CoDA Service Conference. And I thought it was great that the CoDA Literature Committee spent a lot of time formulating it and formatting it and so that they can put it in our booklets and everything. And when I read it, it made sense, but it took a long time for me to accept it. And when I read it, it really felt better to me because I've always used I statements in my recovery, just like a lot of codependents do. Mm-hmm. Of course, when I started in my recovery, it was I at home and me. When I went to my meeting, it was we. So I needed everybody in my recovery to help me get to the next stage where it was I on both sides. So today, David and I figured that we would put it out there and we could all read it and we could give our impression on how it feels to the fellowship forum. And that's really all I have prepared, David.
That's great. Thank you, James. I can piggyback on that. One of the things I've heard said by people from the literature committee, excuse me, is that they wanted to, they took a look at the current version of the Recovery Patterns of Codependence, a document I'm really fond of. It mirrors the Patterns of Codependency document, and it includes in kind of a bookkeeping or journal form, two sides, a balance sheet. On one side, on the left-hand side, is codependence often, and on the right side is in recovery. I've always been fond of this document over the Patterns of Codependency, because discovering that I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, I really benefit from the in recovery side. I may not do exactly what it recommends or suggests. Pardon me, I'm getting over a head cold, and so my throat gets a little tired. But I appreciate the suggestion. It gives me a direction to go in, and I need that. And so I've always been fond of the Recovery Patterns of Codependence. And the thinking from the literature committee was that to coincide more with the language of I statements, not you and we statements. And in the current version, there are a lot of, I believe, we statements and possibly some you statements. And so they spent quite a bit of time, I think more than a year, James, correct me if I'm wrong, on working this I version. And I'm going to share that on the screen, and we can take a look at exactly how things differ and get some feedback, whether you like, don't like, and what you think of this new version. So let me jump right to it, share this on the screen, and there we go. Now, I can make it just a scooch larger. I just want to keep both documents side by side. Actually, don't need this part because I didn't fill that column in. But you can see here how, I don't know, is there anyone who cannot read? Raise your hand if you're having trouble seeing this document. Let me just adjust this so I can see any raised hands. I'm not seeing any raised hands, so I'm going to continue thinking that everybody is capable of reading this rather tiny display, and thank you. So here we have the layout of denial patterns, and it does go down to low self-esteem. And we'll start with denial patterns, and you can see word for word how the current document, this is the current document on the left side of the screen, and the I version on the right side of the screen. So there really is no difference. One of the big differences is that the column is labeled in codependence rather than, or instead of, codependence often. It still says in recovery. And I don't know, I'm going to open the mic and so that people don't have to raise hands and allow people to just unmute themselves if you would like to. What do you think about we take turns reading these documents? If someone would like to read the I version in codependence and someone then can read the in recovery, or you and James, you and I could take turns. One of us reads the in codependence, one of us reads recovery. What do you say?
Sure. Which one are we starting on?
I would start with the I, and unless we see a difference that we want to talk about.
In codependence, I have difficulty identifying what I am feeling.
In recovery, I become more aware of my feelings and identify them. Often in the moment, I learn the difference between my thoughts and feelings. And I do see that there is a little bit of difference between the current version and the I version. For one thing, it says more aware. And it's something I become more aware instead of I am aware. So this allows me a little more latitude to move around inside that box.
This is Marilee.
Marilee, welcome.
Hi, thank you. And I have read through this version, many of the different patterns. And in general, just like this specific example, I find it to be gentler, I get a sense of feeling more loved and welcome where I'm at. So that I become more aware is so much gentler to me of a way of saying it than I am aware. That's like I've reached the destination in the old patterns. And if I haven't become aware and reached the destination, well, then I've fallen short. And it's kind of a black and white piece. Whereas in the I version, becoming more aware is an ever evolving process. And that is the essence of my recovery. And I feel very much accepted and included, and that this refers to me. So I really appreciate, and this is consistent. My experience is this is consistent throughout the I and the we versions. It's just so much more pleasant and applicable to me in a personal way. And I also want to say, as you had talked about, David, the recovery patterns versus the patterns. I've always seen the previous or the original, the first one that we have of the three, the I we version, if you will, that it has been the in recovery side, and this is consistent through all versions, is like the promises. It is a destination or a goal or a direction to which I'm headed. And many of these, I know where I'm at. I can identify myself as being codependent as described, yet I don't know what to do with it. And so the in recovery side gives a promise or an idea of a direction to move toward. And so that was a huge breath of fresh air when I saw the recovery patterns. So I'm really grateful that they kept them in the two sides. So those are the 2 points that I wanted to make. Pass.
Oh, thank you, Marilee. Thank you very much for that share. Appreciate that. And anyone else looking over these, if you haven't had a chance to, I'm going to put links in the chat where if you haven't gotten a download of the draft version, I don't believe it's been posted. That's pretty sure. Gail might know. Thank you. Welcome, Gail. Great to see you here today. Gail is may I say this, Gail? You are the former leader of the Fellowship Forum, and thank you for entrusting James and I with this, what's the right word, platform, this opportunity to share with the Fellowship CoDA issues and CoDA language and CoDA documents and policies and procedures. A chance to discuss CoDA, not just my own personal experience, strengths, and hope. Welcome, Gail.
Thank you, David. I like to refer to myself as a facilitator. I'm never a leader in CoDA. I want to piggyback on Marilee's share. You know, what I love about the I statements, it is very much the flavor of the promises. While I may read certain things that says I, they may not have been fulfilled yet, but it's an affirmation that I'm going in that direction. And that's what I love about anything where it says I or we, because now I'm owning it. I'm owning that I'm either there on that particular statement, or I know that I'm heading that way and I'm taking ownership of working towards that direction. And that's what I love about the I versions. And with that, I pass.
Thank you, Gail. And sorry, I'll try to remember that you want to be referred to as a facilitator. I encounter so many different headings for the people who do the meetings. In California, I had to learn that in the face-to-face meetings, at least, people are called secretary. Well, that really threw me for a loop because to me, a secretary is someone who takes the notes about the meeting. But arose by any other name? And thank you, Gail, for your service. Anyone else? Let me know if you want me to slide over to the we version of this document. While I go get links to the at least the draft versions of the I and the we version of the recovery patterns of codependence. Anyone see anything that jumps out or would like to make a comment?
I think it would be good to read the we statements on the first one that we did.
So you want me to slide over to the we version?
Yeah. Yes, please.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
This is Marilee, and I'm looking at about the sixth one down. On the I version, it says, I think I can take care of myself without any help from others. And then the recovery side, I acknowledge that asking for help is healthy self-care, versus the previous, I acknowledge that I sometimes need the help of others.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, like, significant difference in the feel of it.
Yeah, I agree. That's a big difference.
Yeah.
Thank you for spotting that one.
Yeah, some of them are really significantly more, I want to say, loving, gentle, kind, allow me to feel a part of. And as you talk about the I versus the we, and we get into that conversation, it strikes me as the I version is the place where when I came into CoDA and I heard the patterns of codependence, and it's written in our book that way, see if, these things apply to you.
Yeah.
That the I version is really the way to look at myself. When I'm doing a self-evaluation, I want the I version.
Right.
And, the we version is very nice. Also, it's that group think kind of aspect, and we're all in this together. But it doesn't give me that same sense of self-evaluation of where am I at, where am I headed. So I think they're both useful, but in different scenarios or different purposes. What's the goal of reading the patterns? And then to choose the I or the we. Personally, I would love to see the first one, that's the I we, dropped off. I think it is a bit harsh and not as helpful to CoDA overall. And I pass.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing, Marilee. When I read the I version in preparing this comparison table, I had to, I wound up having to read each and every one of these, and I was impressed, especially by the I version. I really like the I version. I'm going to digress for a minute and read from the Codependent, excuse me, Codependence Anonymous book, also known as the Blue Book, from the third edition, beginning on page 3, bottom of page 3, where it says, many of us struggle with the questions, what is codependence? Am I codependent? We want precise definitions and diagnostic criteria before we will decide. As stated in the 8th tradition, Codependence Anonymous is a non-professional fellowship. We offer no definition or diagnostic criteria for codependence. What we do offer from our experience are characteristic attitudes and behaviors that describe what our codependent histories have been like. We believe that recovery begins with an honest self-diagnosis. We come to accept our inability to maintain healthy and nurturing relationships with ourselves and others. We begin to recognize that the cause lies in long-standing destructive patterns of living. These patterns and characteristics are offered as a tool to aid in self-evaluation. They may be particularly helpful to newcomers. And what follows that description is, of course, the patterns of codependency: denial, low self-esteem, compliance, control, and avoidance. And there it just lists what is in the first column, codependence often, or in codependence I. And so I think that's really piggybacking on what you were saying earlier, Marilee, that this material is a starting point for understanding my sorting out what are my particular bottom line codependent behaviors. So, and then I said I would slide across. Let me see if I can do this elegantly. If not, oh, I can. Yeah. Okay. And now you can compare the I and the we versions. One of the things, I'm really glad to hear you say what you said, because one of the issues raised in Houston at CSC was people were very concerned about losing what is the current published version of the patterns of recovery patterns of codependence. And so I think with exposure, with people becoming more familiar with this I and we version, hopefully, I think people will see that this is a step in the right direction for CoDA literature, this particular piece of literature to go in. So thank you so much. I appreciate you saying that. Any other thoughts? Here's the I and we version side by side. Of course, in the we version, they go back to, excuse me, in the codependence often column, not in codependence. And then I said I would go get links to I need to do that without messing up the screen share. So James, Marilyn, anyone. Mics are open. You can unmute yourself if you would like to, if you see anything that jumps out, if you want me to scroll down to the low self-esteem patterns to look at some more.
Yes, David, when I started my recovery, I had difficulty identifying what I was feeling. I was numb. I had no feelings at all. I was a total codependent, totally. And I had to go to a meeting to become more aware of my feelings and identify them. Often in the moment, we learn the difference between our thoughts and feelings. And I needed the we when I started my recovery. And that's why I'm glad that they're going to put them side by side. Because like I said, I mean, yeah, we're all growing, but there's a lot of people coming in. And if they're like me, when they come in, they're numb and they have no feelings. And the only way that I could get feelings was to go to a meeting. And that's why I love the we. It belongs, it feels good to me. And it's correct for me. But the I versions are correct for me now. But that's part of my history, that I had to go to a meeting. I had to go to the we to get recovery. I definitely had to do that because I was a mess. So that when they said they're going to put them side by side, that made a lot of sense to me. I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Anyone else? Do you want me to scroll down further to the low self-esteem?
This is Marilee, and I feel like I'm dominating too much here. and yet, James shared his experience of appreciating the we version. And so I would like to share that I really appreciated the I version in CoDA. My issue, among other things, was focusing on other people, caring about what other people thought, felt, wanted, and not focusing on myself. And that anytime I would focus on myself, at least in my family of origin, I was called selfish. And so to hear something that says I in it, and that it's right for me to focus on myself, and specifically first, before I focus on someone else, was a huge education piece. And so hearing things in the I version where I'm looking at myself, and that's the right way to do it, quote unquote, right way, was huge for me. One of the really, it still is a really big thing of thinking what's best for me before I think of what's best for the group. And then seeing how those two can be blended together. But if I start with what's best for the group, I lose the I completely. It never shows up. So that's the alternate explanation of, or offering of my experience preference for the I version.
Thank you, James and Marilyn, for your share. Anyone else? I'm going to roll down and give people an opportunity to review the low self-esteem patterns. My particular flavor of codependent behavior, low self-esteem, something I identify with. That resonates deeply with me. All of the things on this list were particularly helpful, especially discovering that procrastination. I have difficulty getting started, meeting deadlines, and completing projects. In recovery, I willingly take action, starting and completing what needs to be done. It was an eye-opener for me to discover that my procrastination was directly connected to my self-esteem issues, my low self-esteem. All the years I was trying to stick a stick where the sun don't shine to get myself going and couldn't figure out why it wasn't working. I had no idea until I got to this program that the reason it wasn't working is I wasn't addressing the problem. And that when I began to work on my low self-esteem issues, things started to change with my inability to get started, complete tasks, and generally goof off and procrastinate. It was all connected, and I had no idea that these two things were directly connected. So one more of the many benefits I've derived from this program is learning that things are connected in ways that from my lizard codependent brain, I did not understand, and that getting higher power and this fellowship involved in recovery made a big difference, enabled me to make progress in recovering joy and happiness in my life that was not happening before I got to this program. So grateful. Thank you, CoDA. And by the way, this is CoDA's birthday month. Happy birthday, CoDA. CoDA is 37 years old on the 22nd of October. And it is also my birthday month, coincidentally. Happy birthday, CoDA birthday to me. Anyone else like to take a share on the low self-esteem patterns, the I versus the we? On the left is the new I version, and on the right is the new we version. And I'm about to put links to all three of these documents in the chat. I do that better when I'm not talking. So if someone else would like to, so we don't have a lot of dead air. Yes, Gail, thank you.
I'm sitting here listening, and, this is just like a CoDA meeting for me, because I just had an awareness. The difference between the I and the we for Gail. I have an aversion to the we, and I'll tell you why. I had an ex-husband who used to always speak for us, and he would say, we feel, we think. And I always argue saying, wait a minute, I wasn't part of that decision of how we think or we feel. So why don't you speak for yourself and not for me? Because I was raised in a household with a stepfather that it was his way or no way. And so I really, through years of therapy and years of recovery work, I had to get back to the I. That I statement that I own, that I strive for, is important. When I'm in a situation where it's a we, my resistance and my wall comes up. And I didn't have that awareness until just now. So thank you all for pointing out some place that I've got some energy still. But my personal preference is the I statements, although for others, if it is their personal preference for the we, go for it. I know that when I'm in a circumstance where it's a we recital, I change mine to I. I don't say the we. And that's my personal preference, and that's my personal recovery that I'm still working on, owning Gail's thoughts, feelings, and realities. So thanks for letting me share that one.
Thank you, Gail. Thanks for your share. That royal we can be a real sore rub, an irritant, hearing that. Yes, wave more slowly. We do this, we do that. What we should do is that there's a weasel word, should. We ought to be doing this, we ought to be doing that. I hear that. All right, I've got the links. If you want to get a copy of the I and we versions of the draft versions of this document that is being displayed on the screen, you can use these links. You can also save the chat on your computer by clicking the ellipse in the bottom of the chat box, or three dots. If you click that, you should be able to click Save Chat. Let me know if that's a yes, Meryl. Marilee, I see your hand up. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. So when I'm looking at these two, we've kind of lost the 2015 version, which I see you've posted the link to. I pulled out my hard copy. And if you could scroll back to the left to see
Sure.
what the other version shows in the recovery side, I see it significantly changed. Now they're the same in the I and the we, basically, but from the 2018 version where it says, I trust my ability to make effective decisions, where the 2023 versions, I trust my higher power's guidance and my intuition in making effective decisions. I mean, whoa, significantly different.
Yeah.
And so in the next one down, it's a choosing personal progress rather than perfection. Instead of I emphasize, there's just over and over again. The next one, I graciously accept. It's just, I think that the 2023 versions, the I and the we, are so significantly improved for the tone of codependent support in our recovery. I just wanted to point that out, which is like why I would love to see the IWE version, the 2015 version, dropped, because it just feels so much harsher to me, and the new versions are just softer and more loving, and so there we are, and I'll be quiet now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Marilyn. Marilee, I'm sorry. Sorry to butcher your name. And I should know better. And we know why. Yes, I at the risk of crosstalk, I wholeheartedly agree with the shares I'm hearing today. And hopefully this message will get carried through to the board, and they will see that with some exposure, carry this information to your meetings. Please let people know, because in Houston, there was a fair amount, I don't want to say a lot, but there was a fair amount of resistance to resistance to change, and resistance to even considering this I and we versions of the recovery patterns of codependence. And I was not sure how I felt about it at the time, because truth be told, even though I had more than enough time to become familiar with and read these two motions, they were available at the motions listing site at CoDA.org. Not always the easiest way to get that information, but I had not read them, and so was unsure of how to vote on the issue. And fortunately, because it became a topic for the fellowship forum and I had to read them in order to make this side-by-side chart, I discovered that I felt very strongly about the I version of this document. I think it is a significant improvement. I would absolutely agree with that sentiment, and hopefully it will, whether or not CoDA decides to take down the old version, even if they do, it's going to persist in meetings for many years to come. But with exposure, with familiarity, I think other people are going to also find that they like the I and we versions. It is clearer language, and it, as has already been said, supports my recovery in a gentler and more loving way than the previous document, which I relied on a great deal. And I had no idea it could be improved. And here it is right before me in what I think is a significant improvement. So thank you. Pass. Anyone else? You don't need to raise your hand. You can unmute yourself. Marilyn.
Thank you, David.
Welcome.
My name's Marilyn. Thank you. I'm happy to be here and hear your shares. They are affirming, inspiring. Given the program and verifiable code being all ours, singular hybrid Canada has CoDA, and it was fantastic. And now I'm curious how the process works. Such a wonderful insight into the systems that are our own here. For letting me just be here.
Thank you for the share. Thanks for being here. Just want to let you know the audio on your for you is a little hit and miss. Couldn't hear everything you were saying clearly. Got the gist of it, and thank you for sharing, Marilyn. Marilyn. Yes.
I'm the reason for the confusion between Marilyn and those names on the screen are similar.
Yeah. Yeah, we have Marilee and Marilyn here today, along with James, myself, and Gail. And although I'm not going to say anyone else's name because they haven't shared or identified themselves, and that's okay. How about I scroll down and we take a look at compliance and get compliance up here and take a look at that. And let me know if anything jumps out for you. And while you're looking at that, I'll share that one of the things I got from this program and from the promises was that the light at the end of the tunnel is not a freight train coming right at me, but something that helps guide me on, like the person who I got that from the person who brought me to my first CoDA meeting. Thank you so much for doing that. Who used to say, used to say to me all the time, if you're going to beat yourself, do it with a feather. And that was the other thing. There are many things I got from that person who, the family member who brought me to my first CoDA meeting a number of years ago. And thank you so much for doing that. Okay. Anything jump out for you? Anyone here in compliance patterns? We'll roll down.
Sure. This is Marilee again. And,
Hi, Marilee.
The second one there, I mean, the first two are really, again, it's the way the wording has changed from the old style, the 15 to the I, we. I mean, the first one there, the in recovery, I am committed to my safety and leave in situations that are unsafe or inconsistent with my goals, versus I am committed to my personal and emotional safety. I am able to leave situations that feel threatening or unsafe feels to me so much more empowering of someone who is in a threatening or unsafe situation. It's so much clearer. And the other version, the 15 version, just doesn't hit the same way. It's like, oh, this is how I take care of myself. The other is so much more big. It's just over and over and over. I really feel so strongly that the 2023 versions really need to be up on the web and available and accessible and publicized, with banners across the top of the CoDA.org website to bring attention to it.
Right.
And frustrated to not see them up, every time I go, and it's just like, can we just get this stuff? These beautiful things that have been accepted. I think that when you spoke, David, about the iWe version, people having some resistance to it, I don't think it was the resistance to the 2023 version so much it was the fear of losing the 2015. And people, particularly codependents, really resist change. And once the 2015 version was voted on to be kept, I think that there was this huge sigh of relief. So people wouldn't be stranded and wouldn't lose this document that's been so helpful, and it has been. And so I think if that vote had been either combined with the 2023 or preceded the 2023, there would have been a much, much stronger support for adopting the 2023 version.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that wasn't made clear. There was no intention on the part of the Literature Committee, as I understand it. I can't speak for the Literature Committee. My understanding of the motion was they had no intention of removing or replacing what is the current posted version of the Patterns of Recovery. But it wasn't spelt out clearly in clear language. So people were unsure whether that was the case. But they did get up. Someone from the Literature Committee stood up and spoke and said, no, we're not going to replace it. All these versions will be available. And to explain that it does take a while to get things posted on the web, even though this is endorsed material, but it was not endorsed by 2/3 vote. So it goes to the board for their decision. 2, it has to be set. A proof has to be made. Copyrights have to be attached. There's a number of moving parts, steps in the process of getting this on the web. But yes, right now it is at the CoDA website, but you do have to know where to go. You have to drill down quite deeply to get it. That's why, if you notice, the links to the I and we versions are CoDA.org links, but they are attached to the motions database. So it takes a while for the people responsible for getting this on the web to get all the ducks in and aligned, and it will happen. And so I'm glad we've had this fellowship forum today to share this information with you. Please take this back to your meetings and your fellowship members. Let them know. And maybe in the future, someone from the Literature Committee, the people who worked on creating these documents, would be available to come to the fellowship forum and tell us a little bit about the history and how they arrived at creating these updated versions. Last chance for any comments or feedback about what we've seen. Let's see, if you want to see this comparison of this side-by-side comparison is a web page. Let me post the link to that web page if you want to do your own reading offline. Give me a chance to do this with a title.
David, it does help to read these. I got to admit, if just reading them doesn't help, but using them helps so much. And I realized that when I'm working with my sponsees, I do use the word unsafe a lot more than I would goals, because goals are goals and unsafe is a situation. That's what people want to wrap their mind around, their situations in life. And they have to realize that there are unsafe situations. And I like that term much better than using my goals. Because when we're codependent, goals are elusive. But I like it. I think I really like the I version. I think you're winning me over.
Okay.
I'll pass. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, James. That is all the time we have for today's version of the fellowship form. Thank you all for being here. Our next meeting will be Saturday, November 25th at 12 noon Pacific and Arizona. Actually, in November, Arizona will be back. Everyone else will be back on standard time. So the 12 noon Pacific time, 1 p.m. Mountain time, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Atlantic. And sorry, I don't know what the rest of the world is, but there are ways to figure it out. Do we know what the topic for next month is, James?
No, but we could use one.
Surprise me.
and a speaker.
Okay. Any suggestions from the fellowship here today on what you would like the fellowship forum to bring to the fellowship forum meeting?
This is Marilee.
Yes, Marilee.
And the one place that I see an area where I would like more direction or information for CoDA as a whole is regarding the service concepts. We have a workbook that talks about the steps and the traditions, but I don't see anything with a similar expansion of the service concepts.
Great. Thank you for that suggestion. I'm going to look it up. I know there's some material out there on service concepts besides just the listing of the 12 service concepts that we read during the CoDA Service Conference. So I will look into that and see if we can't find someone to speak on that topic. Thank you for that suggestion. That will be the topic next month, CoDA Service Concepts. Did I hear you correctly?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you. I will make this in red. A meeting that I need to not miss and make sure I attend.
Would you like to speak on your experience with that and what you're looking for?
Well, I think I speak up pretty well. And so asking me to, specifically share on it is a little bit.
I'll reach out to you offline and we can talk about maybe what I find and whether or not you want to contribute on a.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll contribute during the conversation. I can imagine I'd be quiet.
Thank you for contributing today. Much appreciated. Thank you so much for your share. Anyone else have anything to say? Any questions, comments, or feedback before we close the meeting today? If you are waiting for me to turn off the recording, that will happen shortly. And
hello, David.
Yes, Kathy. Welcome.
I think this was an excellent meeting. It's the first time I've ever attended the forum. And I think that the new version is so much more friendly than what I've been reading. It's not as harsh all the way around. And I'm so glad that the next topic is going to be service concepts, because that kind of leaves me, I'd like to know more about that. Okay?
All right.
And thank you and very much for running this. You did an excellent job. I can't wait to come back.
Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, I think summing up, the consensus is we like the new versions of the recovery patterns of codependence. So listen up, CoDA. You hear us? We like it. Get it up there on the website. Every time you play this recording, yes, please. More.
Yes.
I'll have more of that, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll close the meeting with the CoDA closing prayer. I'll share that on the screen. If I may, give it a shot. That gets it. Yeah. Welcome to say along with me the CoDA closing prayer. Moment of silence first, please. Closing prayer. We thank
a
our
higher power
for
all that we have
have
received from this meeting. As
As
we
we
close,
may
may we take with us the wisdom, love, acceptance, and hope of recovery.
Amen.
Thank you all very
Amen.
much.
Thank you. All right, let me stop the recording. And remember to do that today.